Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers play their first preseason game tonight. What should you be looking for? We'll tell you next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter where you get your podcasts, this one's always going to be free, never hidden behind some godforsaken paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube. It's where you can go hang out with over 36,000 subscribers to the channel, all of whom are talking to each other, talking to us, leaving questions, leaving comments. One person said today for Thursday's show in the comments that my takes were way off. My take was way off. I said, which one? He said, all of them. So just to know, we read all of it, and we appreciate the feedback.
I said what I said.
Stand by everything I wrote. So we'll get to all that. Reminder to people, you can subscribe to the audio product, obviously, through Apple, through Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Lakers opening the preseason tonight at Acrisure, which is, I believe, is that Palm Springs or Ontario? I forget.
It's in the desert. I know that just because shout out to DeAndre Hawkins, one of our coworkers over at 710 ESPN. He is from the desert area, and he said that that building is relatively near where he grew up.
All right, so just head out to the desert. You will find the arena at some point.
Or DeAndre's house.
Or you can ask for directions, I suppose. So that is tonight. We'll get into what to look for tonight, who will be in the game, who will not be in the game, all of that coming up in a moment. But I do want to let you know first that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. So there have been a few sort of themes, Andy, that have definitely permeated through the first few days of training camp. And on Thursday, the players and JJ Redick were talking about it again. JJ wasn't messing around when he was talking about this championship shape thing. And apparently the shape you're not supposed to be in is round. Round is not a championship shape.
It's funny, actually, when you say they were talking about this, you might more accurately say they were gasping while talking about it, because these practices, as Luka said when asked to describe them, use three words: fun, excitement, hard. And JJ joked that he might not be too popular with the players right now because he has been making them do a lot of sprints, a lot of that type of not particularly fun stuff in the very early portion of training camp. But it emphasizes what he had said at exit interviews about wanting everybody to be in championship shape, which many people interpreted as commentary about Luka, which to some degree, I'm sure it was. But it had also been reported at the time that JJ was talking about the entire team. And something else that came up a lot today during practice was the idea that it's not just physical, like the physical conditioning that you're in, and championship shape being defined purely by physical conditioning. It's mental conditioning and acknowledging the mental piece of this that is very difficult, whether you're talking about over the course of games, over the course of the entire season.
Yeah, I mean, to be specific, the one of the things that they did today, ending practice, this from Dave McMenamin, 6 series of full court sprints, 6 lengths in 34 seconds. Could you do that, Andy?
6 length? How long? I mean, length
34
of what?
seconds.
Length of what?
The basketball court.
Oh, no, not that. I mean, if it's like the length of my living room, then maybe sure.
Followed by,
it's a decent sized living room, but I think I can do that in 34 seconds.
I think so. Followed by 10 lengths in a minute, and then a final 6 lengths in 34 seconds.
Oh, this reminds me of all the crap we had to do in high school football that just sucked.
Yeah. I think maybe if like you put a gun to my head, I could do the 10 lengths in a minute. Probably not. but I certainly couldn't do it if I had to do 6 lengths in 34 seconds and then follow it with 6 more lengths in 34 seconds. Even without that, I don't think I could do it anyway.
My combined 90
hard.
seconds would be much better spent just getting my affairs in order for when you pull the trigger, because I'm not winning.
You just make a phone call. I always think that expression is very strange. Like people, gun to your head, because you're like, who's doing that? like that's a very strange criteria.
The way we're talking about this, JJ's the one with the gun.
That's right. Just a weird criteria for preserving or taking someone's life. But I think that fatigue is one of those things, and it's championship shape. There were a lot of games over the last couple seasons with the Lakers where and playoff games, those series against Denver, they're good examples. It came up couple times in the series with Minnesota, although one of them it's because there is no championship shape that probably prepares you for never substituting in the second half. But the last 3 or 4 minutes of a game, the last 90 seconds of a game or something like that, when you are truly tired, is where your decision making starts to go. It's not even just a question of are you able to move your feet quick enough? Are you able to, it's like your mind, your brain, they don't operate as well when you start to get really tired. And so, it's not just posturing when JJ talks about like championship shape and this and that. It's not, so you can show everyone how many wind sprints you can do and push-ups and pull-ups and all these other things. You mentioned the mental part of it, Andy. You have to be able to function at your most fatigued at an incredibly high level if you're going to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder in the playoffs, if you're going to beat the Denver Nuggets in the playoffs and things like that.
We've talked before about how over the 20 years or so that we've been covering various Laker teams and watching the NBA super closely, you will see teams over the last, in fourth quarter, but in particular the last 3 or 4 minutes of a fourth quarter, often not running anything. And really, it becomes very ISO heavy. The ball gets really sticky, and it can drive fans nuts. It can often drive us nuts as people observing the team and covering them. But one of the things you've pointed out a lot, and I think it's actually very true, is that in those last 3 or 4 minutes, that's often when guys can be most mistake prone because of the fatigue. And therefore, I think coaches often have a higher tolerance for not running bleep during crunch time, some of the most critical moments, because they are so hyper aware and I think even hyper afraid of mistakes happening. So they often will, I guess, settle for the simplicity of not running anything, but fewer passes or fewer sequences that can result in mistakes and turnovers than actually running sets that might lead to a better possession, but the risk factor feels higher.
Yeah, it's just there's just so much that goes into it. Like, we literally us, but then the people watching the games, the fans, everybody's sitting here commentating. Like we really like to weigh in so much on and boil things down to it's obvious that X, Y, and Z should have happened instead of A, B, and C. How can you not see that? How can you not do that? And the reality of it is just it often gets way more complicated. There's so much stuff going on here, some of which includes you're exhausted, like there is enormous pressure, like you're talking about. It's just this is complex stuff, and like the idea is to try to make these, and what JJ Redick is clearly trying to do is make them as equipped as possible to make the best choices, to have the best execution, to be able to function best in these moments as he possibly can. And so, beyond the sort of the discipline of that, the getting used to the grind of that, and I know something maybe we talk about later in the next segment. The regular season is unquestionably a grind, and so simulating that in camp to some degree isn't a bad idea. So we'll get to that, and of course, Andy previewing tonight's preseason opener against, is it the Suns? It's probably
Yes,
the Suns. I feel like they played the Suns like 6 times. So that's coming tonight. We'll preview all of it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people cannot name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether we're talking 401ks, properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture of your entire net worth, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface, whether on your laptop or on your phone. And Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing finances, Monarch is for you. It does the heavy lifting. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, smart characterizations of spending, and feel in control of your money without touching or even creating a spreadsheet. Like as an example, my daughter just started high school. I'm already having to think about college and tuition and dorm expenses, and that stuff is daunting. But Monarch Money can help me streamline spending, figure out areas where I can be more efficient, save better, maybe not even spend at all, creating a plan for the next step. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA.
Yeah, I mean, when we were talking, Andy, kind of kicking ideas around back and forth, and one of the things that you pointed out was like, training camp can get to be a grind. It's broken up by 6 games this year, but it is 3 weeks long, and these guys just want to get out and start playing real games. But it's underrated, and I think understated just how much of a grind 82 games is, as you get ready for, especially a team like the Lakers that, the destination isn't the end of the 82. It is deeper than that, at least a round or 2 or 3. They're looking at a championship, even if that's not what Vegas has in store for them.
We've joked before about Rob Pelinka over, I would say, the last year or so, really the JJ Redick era, wanting grinders on this team. And, grinder being one of Rob's buzzwords until he eventually landed on optionality as the new toy. But the truth is, you really do have to be kind of a grinder to get through a season like this, whether you're talking to players, whether you're talking about the coaches. Hell, I would say at times, even the people covering the team, although I would not put it at the same scale, it's long. Mm-hmm. Anything that lasts at this type of pace from October through at minimum April, if not May or June, it is hard to maintain focus and the type of excellence that you want to maintain for that period of time. Like, it's really difficult. And there is, when LeBron talks a lot about process, and that's something Kobe used to talk a lot about with process. Like, a lot of great players talk about that. And I think the reason that speaks to them is the process and the grind. They're very, very interconnected. Like, they really cannot be separated, because part of the process of becoming the team that you want to be, unless you are just like the KD era Warriors, where you were just so much better than everybody else that it doesn't matter, or maybe like the Kobe Shaq era Lakers, where it really did feel like they could flip a switch because they had, 2 of the 3 best players in the league in their prime on the same team. Like, for the most part, it takes a lot of work and time and persistence to land on the best version of yourself. And it's not particularly fun. Like, you may appreciate elements of it, and there is joy in the moments, but there's also a lot of it that is very methodical and not particularly fun. And you got to be able to push through it.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think a lot of it, it is for all of us, we prep, we do a lot of work, we watch games, we read practices, we listen, or we read practice reports, we listen to podcasts and call people on the phone and do all this other stuff. It's like, we're doing work, but in all of our jobs, most people try to find a way to get better and do it better and build to something and all that stuff. We all kind of work through our own processes. What we all don't have is necessarily the physical aspect that goes along with it of, having to prep for this show while, climbing a mountain or something like the physical aspect of what these guys do combined with the mental aspect of it. And yes, to be as good as these guys want to be is a mental grind. You're breaking down tape. You are analyzing performance. You're organizing your day. There's a reason these guys are so incredibly regimented. And the way that JJ Redick executed his career in it was just these absurdly regimented ways. It's because the discipline that's required to be this good is staggering. And I know they're well compensated, but it's also hard work what they're doing. And all of us out here, hold them to a really high standard. So just real quick, this process aspect of it, I think that has become, Kobe talked about it, and it's, I think, become something that people talk about it a lot more over the last 15, 20 years, is critical because it's the process that allows you to break up and not be overwhelmed by 82 games plus playoffs and not looking forward straight to the end. LeBron, as much as anybody knows, there are 25, 50 things, 100 things that they've got to do and build towards before you can get good enough to think about a title. There are 100 things you have to do to maintain your body so that you can compete for that title if the opportunity presents itself. Process is incredibly important.
Well, I mean, it's part of the reason that Kobe and LeBron and Steph and some of these superstars get to the game so early or start their workouts so early. It's not just the rise and grind element of it and, the myth making and often the public myth making of it, because these guys often want the world to know how early they're there. And that's fine, whatever. You can serve more than one purpose at once, but there is a legitimate piece of, there is a lot that goes into me prepping to be at this level, and I got to get an early start on it. I can't just show up, 2 hours before the game, and all these guys basically have to be there around 2 hours before the game starts. That's the mandatory minimum.
For a lot of yes,
yeah. For a lot of guys, it's for everything I need to do in order to feel prepared at my expected level, the level expected of myself. I got to be at a game at the arena 4 hours before tip-off, 5 hours before tip-off. And again, it's not just performative myth-making. This is what it requires.
No, and I think, Kobe used to like to claim the most preposterous nonsense that he was not a naturally gifted athlete, that he wasn't one of there are all kinds of, dude, you want a dunk contest, stop it. But there are all kinds of mental games too that these guys play with themselves in terms of, the tricks you do so that you will show up at the gym at 5 a.m. So for Kobe, he seemed to convince himself that he, wasn't that kind of athlete, and he had to do all the other stuff to be able to compete at that level.
Well, I think a lot of it is just even for guys like Kobe and LeBron and the other workaholic sickos, it's not fun. And even those guys, LeBron has talked about, one of the signs that it'll be time to hang it up will be the work I don't find anything in the work other than just being a pain in the ass.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it because what I'm doing it for,
as obsessed as Kobe was about this stuff, you still had to find a reason to keep chipping away and keep working, because after a while, any logical brain would say, dude, you've mastered it all.
Right.
Or and LeBron.
And even what I was getting at too is even with those tricks that these guys play, Kobe playing that mental trick or whatever, as silly as that might sound to us, just looking at it come on, man, you're not that kind of athlete, really.
Kobe could have coasted through his career
but
and
he,
had
but if he
a
coasted
15-year
through
career.
if he coasted through his career, he wouldn't have been Kobe. What separates the most elite players from the NBA caliber athlete is the dedication to this sort of detail and the understanding of process and the willingness to not to cut.
Kobe's series was called Detail.
Yes.
I mean,
but it's like, it's not even like they're not willing to cut corners. They like add corners to make sure, like, to go around those as well. They create other things that can go beyond what would get you from point A to point B. Like that, the 5% that they're able to generate, the 4%, the 6%, whatever the number is, that's what separates these guys. And you're right, Kobe, LeBron, Steph, to some degree, and because he's so little, it's harder to say. But like, LeBron James, if he wanted a 10-year NBA career just based on his body and the athleticism, could have had it, could have retired a rich man, no problem. But he wouldn't have been LeBron. Nope. So that's, I 100% agree. And that's, it's interesting to hear guys who are that elite talk about it in the way that they have. Who's playing tonight in the desert? Somewhere in the desert. What should Lakers fans be looking for? We'll get to it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel, and the NFL season full swing. FanDuel is making sure you are ready for every kickoff with a can't miss offer. New customers right now, you bet $5, just $5. And if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So just pick something super obvious. I love that FanDuel fits however you want to bet, whether you're talking player props, same game parlay, even jumping in live as the season or the action unfolds. And if you're someone who has a feel for how a game's going to shake out, you can get ahead of that result with little wager. Makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching the team you love IRL or keeping an eye on a fantasy lineup. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
So Lakers versus Suns tonight, preseason opener. Obviously, you don't expect perfection in these games. You don't expect your starting and most important players to be playing huge minutes and so on and so on. But it is the first window that we get into perhaps what the Lakers could look like over the course of the season and that kind of stuff. We know LeBron won't be playing. We know Marcus Smart won't be playing. We know that Maxi Kleber, who's going to miss a few days, doesn't seem like the results of the testing revealed anything terribly serious, but he will not be suited up in this preseason opener. So we know who won't be playing.
And Adu Theoro also will not be suited.
Still has not been cleared. So, okay, we won't see the full package here of everything the Lakers can offer, but we will see certainly some stuff. And what are you looking for?
One of the big things I'm looking for, JJ has talked during these opening days of practice about wanting to increase the tempo of the offense. And by that, he doesn't necessarily mean transition, like, Showtime style up and down the floor, although I'm sure he's open to it when the opportunities present themselves. What he's really talking about is getting into their sets quicker and just getting into the action faster. He talked about, if you go through the data, the teams that begin initiating first action for everything they're going to be doing earlier in the clock have a much greater success rate, much higher points per possession, all of that stuff. And that's something, by the way, that you and I have harped on with this team, not even just in the LeBron era. I mean, it was something that used to go on in the Kobe Powell era as well. I don't know, maybe it's just something about being in LA's Southern California mentality or whatever, but this has been something very consistent over the last few years. Just the idea that the Lakers offense often gumming up in, I think, very tangible part because they will often crap away 6 to 8 seconds just
you're
crossing
they're playing with a 15-second shot clock instead of a 19-second.
Oh, 15? I'd be thrilled if they were playing with a 15
instead of 16.
10, 9. Like, it feels like it takes them at least half of the shot clock to just start getting into something. And it's just opportunity. And even over the course of an entire game, possession count that you are losing. Like, the longer it takes for you to get into your possessions on a consistent basis, the fewer possessions you're going to end up with over the course of 48 minutes. And the Lakers were a low
for sure
pace rate last season. They need to just be quicker and more purposeful and more intentional with what they do.
Your shot quality just goes down. Like, sometimes you need that last, you can't find anything the first 4 or 5 seconds of your actions, 6 seconds, whatever. You need those last 3 or 4, and a good one shakes out with 2 or 3 seconds left in the shot clock. Well, you don't get those 2 or 3 seconds if you use them at the beginning, kind of standing around or ordering a sandwich. And so I agree. It is something that was emphasized, I think, a lot over the course of last year, that sometimes got addressed and other times didn't. I think, kind of just as a habit, the Lakers just went too slow. And it's good to hear that the coaching staff is emphasizing fixing that as we head into this year. I know we talked about him earlier in the week, Andy. I am very interested to see what Dalton Connect looks like coming off of a bad summer league and a kind of framing of the training camp hierarchy where he does not necessarily have a spot in the rotation, but with no LeBron and no Marcus Smart, and LeBron's going to play very few preseason games. Marcus Smart, will probably miss at least a few. They want to get him out on the floor, and just to be conservative there. And so this is going to be where Dalton has a chance to play. And I don't know if really good play in the preseason will get him into the rotation to start it. The Lakers play again on Sunday, and then have a week off before they play again. So we'll see. Like by next week or something, some of these guys might be back in the lineup. But if Dalton doesn't look better than he did in the summer league, everyone kind of gave him, I don't want to say a pass, like outside the building. Outside the building, Dalton was filleted.
I was going to say, dude got no passes outside that building at all.
Inside the building, I don't know what they're saying internally, but they kind of went to bat for him and gave him the old, if it's the equivalent of in a job interview when you say, I'm just too much of a perfectionist. Like, Dalton was working too hard, and, when it got time to do the thing, he was exhausted. Okay. That's the story we're all working with, whatever, but that time has passed. Now here's another chance to go out and play against, NBA level competition. Some starters, probably some rotation guys, some camp guys. How do you look? And if Dalton can't change some of that perception and look more engaged and look like a more productive NBA caliber player, it is absolutely fair to hit, sort of the alarm bells and hit him really hard and wonder if he really is going to even give himself an opportunity, or he's even capable of breaking into the rotation this year.
I'm really curious too, beyond everything that you mentioned, just how confident does he look out there? How intentional, how purposeful does he look? How just in the swing of things does Connect seem to feel? Because there were times at Summer League where he, beyond not playing well, seemed kind of lost or aimless. But the flip side is it's easier, I'm not going to say excusable, but easier to become that way when you're playing with lesser players. And other people are being asked to set you up and they don't quite know what they're supposed to be doing. So again, without making excuses for Dalton, I think that can be a factor. That's not going to be there with this group. So again, the intentionality and the purpose and the confidence with which Dalton conducts himself, something I'll be looking for, kind of connected to that in some ways, because when JJ went through the guard rotation and listed the 5 guys that were locks for the rotation, Luka Dončić, Austin Reeves, Marcus Smart, Gabe Vincent, and then Jake LaRavia, who like we discussed before, I think of as much more of a forward than a guard.
Yeah, I think we talked about it for Thursday's show. I think that's a very loose classification for JJ.
Here's
more about who's going to play and less about what position they're going to play.
Well, I don't know. This is what I'm curious about. I mean, it may be a semantical thing. It may have been JJ not even thinking about it in the most literal of ways, even though JJ often is a very semantical, literal person.
Well, you want him to stop doing that.
I do want him to stop. Well, for his own sake, I want him to stop doing it. For my amusement, I want him to keep doing it. So I'm torn. But what I am curious about this, and where I think it may matter, is I'm going to be watching LaRavia to see what they're asking him to do. Mm-hmm. Because if they're asking him to do things that broadly feel more like guard jobs, like how much ball handling is he being asked to do? How much of a secondary or even third option wheel greaser with the ball are they looking for him to be? That may be indicative of JJ thinking of the asks being closer to that of a guard, or maybe split half and half, which, like I mentioned, beyond just the curiosity of seeing what they want to do with LaRavia, I think that could have implications for the playing time among the front court guys, specifically Vando. And I'm curious to see, also connected to this, how does Vando look? Because they have been raving with the early results so far. But I was going to be curious to see how they're using LaRavia regardless. But after what JJ said, I'm very curious to see if maybe it's a little bit different than I expected.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could be wrong in thinking of like this guard classification in there. He's going to have. I just think they look at him as sort of as a shooter, floor spacer, a guy who can pass and things like that. But we'll see. Like, I'm not expecting point guard Jake LaRavia, but I don't think that's necessarily what you're talking about either.
It's not.
Plenty to unpack from this initial preseason game. Obviously, the Lakers doing it again on Sunday. We will break it all down for you. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 36,000 subscribers to the channel. We'll see everyone next time.